Hey guys, in this video I'll show you a solo Magicka Sorcerer build I have tested by soloing veteran Bedlam Veil dungeon. I will be showing both subclassing and pure class skill setups, in case you don't want to engage with subclassing. When it comes to ESO content creation, there are lots of untested scam builds out there, so you'll be able to find both recording and log of the veteran Bedlam Veil I've soloed in the description, so you can see for yourself that this build actually works. You can use this build to obliterate any kind of regular solo content, like arenas, world bosses, dolmens, dragons, volcanic vents, harrow storms, mirror incursions, etc. Because all of these things are 100 times easier than soloing 4-man DLC dungeons, in veteran or hard mode difficulties, which this build is capable of. The build is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it there instead. The link will be in the description. Let's start with subclassing. In this build, I'm trying to stick with the Sorcerer theme, which is why we subclass the Daedric Summoning skill line into Nablaze Assassination. While there are skill lines that will provide more power, such as Herald of the Tome, these skill lines would require us to completely change our playstyle, by for example focusing on Beam or Runeblades. Assassination provides a lot of power with very little change in gameplay, allowing us to preserve the Sorcerer theme. If you're looking for the most powerful subclass combination that doesn't care about keeping the Sorcerer theme, you should look at this build instead. Moving on to skills. This is the base setup that will work for most situations and which should be your starting point when making situational setups. First we have Crystal Fragments, a spammable which will heal you for 10% of your max HP, thanks to the Blood Magic passive. It will also grant you 10% max Magicka for 10 seconds, if you were at full HP. Casting any ability has a 33% chance to make the next Crystal Fragments cast stronger and cheaper. Ulf's contingency with the Shock, Lingering Torment, and Intellect and Endurance combination on it is a 22-second dot which will also grant you minor Intellect and Endurance, increasing your stamina and Magicka recoveries by 15%. It can also be used as an AoE spammable. Relentless Focus is an ability that will cause your light attacks to generate up to 10 stacks. You can spend 4 stacks to fire a powerful arrow that also heals you if you're in melee range. It will also passively grant you major Savage and Prophecy. Barb Trap is a dot that will also apply Hemorrhage stats effect at the start, and grant you Minor Force buff, increasing your critical damage by 10%. Traveling Knife, with the Physical, Lingering Torment and Berserk combination on it, is a 20-second dot, which grants you Minor Berserk, increasing your damage down by 5%. Soul Harvest is a cheap ultimate that increases target's damage taken from you by 20%. This is the ultimate you should use in single target fights. Having it slotted will also cause you to regain 10 ultimate whenever you deal a final blow against an enemy. Next we have Hurricane, an ability which provides a crucial mage resolve buff, which provides almost 6000 armor, and it deals very good damage. It also grants you a 15% movement speed buff during its duration. Critical Surge is your source of major brutality and sorcery, that will also heal you for 3300 whenever you deal critical damage, up to once every second. The heal itself can also be a critical heal. Next we have Elemental Susceptibility, an extremely loaded ability that does a multitude of things. First of all, it's completely free to cast, so it helps us sustain. Second, it applies Major Breach, which reduces enemies' armor by 5948, which is a massive damage increase. And third, it applies Burning, Chilled, and Concussed stats effects at the beginning and then every 7.5 seconds. All of these stats effects deal decent damage, but Concussed will also apply Minor Vulnerability for 4 seconds, increasing enemies' damage taken by 5%. Chilled will also apply Minor Maim for 4 seconds, reducing enemies' damage down by 5%, and it will also apply Minor Brittle for 4 seconds, if you were on your Ice Staff bar, while the Chilled effect procced, which is always going to happen at the beginning, when you cast Elemental Susceptibility. Minor Brittle increases critical damage taken by 10%. The Chilled proc will also synergize with our next ability. Elemental Blockade will constantly apply our Backbar enchant, in this case the Weapon Damage enchantment. It will also constantly apply Minor Breach to enemies who are chilled, and they will be chilled thanks to Elemental Susceptibility. Soul Burst, with the Shock, Lingering Torment and Courage combination on it, is an AoE dot which grants you Minor Courage, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 215. Shooting Star is a powerful ultimate that deals damage on AoE, and grants you ultimate for each enemy hit with the initial blast, up to 6 enemies. Use it in AoE fights, or when you start fights with high amount of ultimate stored up. So that was the base setup. But now I'm gonna show you a bunch of situational skills, which you can use to tailor this base setup to specific fights. Soul Burst is the first skill that has to go, when you need to slot something situational, unless the situational skill specifically says that it's replacing something else. If it has to be a frontbard skill, then the first skill that has to go is also its contingency. First we have Resolving Vigor. Use it for more difficult fights, where the pressure is constant, and thus you need the minor resolve. It can also be used as your main source of healing, in fights with invulnerability phases, where you can't heal with Ring of the Pet Order or Critical Surge. Silver Leash is a chain ability that you can slot in trash packs, to stack enemies and get through them faster. Ulsted's Contingency, with the Shock, Gladiator's Tenacity and Force combination on it, is a replacement for Barb Trap, in fights where you need more damage mitigation. It's a delayed AoE damage that also grants you 8% damage reduction for 8 seconds, and minor force for 22 seconds, which increases your critical damage by 10%. You should recast it every 8 seconds when under pressure, and every 22 seconds otherwise. Razor Caltrops is a source of AoE Major Breach, for trash fights or boss fights with lots of important adds. Next we have Revealing Flare. Use it for more difficult fights, where you, once again, need more damage mitigation. It's a skill that passively grants major protection, reducing your damage taken by 10%. It will also trigger the Magicka 8 passive, which increases your Magicka recovery by 10%. Next we have Precognition, an ultimate that breaks you out of some otherwise unavoidable stuns. You'll need it to get around some mechanics which are otherwise impossible or very difficult to solo, like for example Infernus Hold in Zan the Scalecaller fight. Ball of Lightning is an ability that teleports you forward. Use it in fights where you need more mobility, or in fights where this teleport allows you to invalidate some mechanics. Now let me show you a bunch of examples of how your final setup could look after you apply these situational skills to your base setup. This is a setup for dealing with trash packs. Razor Caltrops replaces Elemental Susceptibility, because it provides AoE Major Breach. And Silver Leash replaces Soul Burst, because it allows you to stack adds. This is a setup with lots of damage mitigation, for bosses that hit very hard. Revealing Flare replaces Barb Trap, because it provides 10% damage mitigation. Ulsted's Contingency changes the Lingering Torment script to Gladiator's Nasty, because it provides 8% damage mitigation. And the Intellect and Endurance script changes to Force, to make up for unslotting Barb Trap. And Resolving Vigor replaces Soul Burst, because it's a strong heal over time, which provides a minor resolve buff. This is a setup you should use when not using subclassing. Deadly Cloak replaces Ulsted's Contingency, Haunting Curse replaces Relentless Focus, Camouflage Hunter replaces Traveling Knife, Bound Aegis replaces Soul Burst, Flawless Dawnbreaker replaces Soul Harvest, and Summon Charge Achnak replaces Shooting Star. And here's a few examples of setups I've used when soloing some dungeons. This is a setup I've used when fighting Shattered Champion in the Bedlam dungeon. Silver Leash replaces Ulsted's Contingency, so that you can chain in Glass Atronax and Glacier adds. And this is a setup I've used when fighting the Blind in the Bedlam dungeon. Ball of Lightning replaces Ulsted's Contingency, so that you can evade the Condemned mechanic. Now as for rotation, I don't use a static rotation, so this is just a list of priorities. Simply recast abilities when they run out, and follow the list of priorities when there are multiple things to refresh. Use Critical Surge, Hurricane, Elemental Susceptibility. If you have Crystal Fragments proc, use it. Use Elemental Blockade, Barb Trap, Traveling Knife. If you're at 9 stacks, use Relentless Focus. Use Soul Burst. Use Ulsted's Contingency. If it's an AoE fight, or you're starting at or close to 185 ultimate, use Shooting Star. If it's a single target fight, use Soul Harvest. If you have at least 4 stacks, use Relentless Focus, and use Crystal Fragments. Keep in mind that you can pre-buff Critical Surge, Hurricane, Soul Burst, and Ulsted's Contingency before entering combat. Now as for passives, the only passive you specifically have to skip is Trifocus. I am now very quickly going through all of the passives you should get on the screen. You can either pause the video or look up this list on the website guide. Moving on to gear. At the beginning I just wanted to say, don't stress too much about obtaining the best gear. The DPS difference between the best gear and crafted gear is only 14.76%, because it's 66,761 DPS versus 56,904 DPS. And the difference is even smaller in overland content, such as world bosses. This is the base setup that will work for most situations and which should be your starting point when making situational setups. So, Unstood Torment, Beacon of Oblivion, Ring of the Pet Order Mythic, Backbarred Crushing Wall, and 1-piece Slamcrow, or any monster set with a critical chance 1 piece. If you want to switch to a situational set, it's best to replace Ansul's Torment, if the situational set you're getting has a minor Slayer line, and replace Beacon of Oblivion otherwise. Now, this is a list of situational gear. Sul'Zan's Torment is the best set for trash packs, and for bosses that regularly spawn smaller adds. Order's Wrath is better than Ansul's Torment in Overland content, where you don't benefit from the minor Slayer and penetration bonus lines. Vestments of Olorim provides 430 weapon and spell damage, 5% damage reduction from minor Aegis, and can be backbarred without losing anything, allowing for much more flexibility with gear. It's the ideal set for more difficult fights. Roxa the Warped is a monster set which provides a lot of sustain. You will only have space for it when backbarring Olorim. Armor of the Trainee's 1-piece bonus provides 1454 max health. It also comes in any weight, so we can use it on the chest piece, which combined with the reinforced trait will provide a lot of armor. Now, this is a list of alternative gear, so gear that is easier to obtain and can be used while you work towards the best gear, which is basically 2 things: Order's Wrath and Tideborn Wildstalker. No Overland, Dungeon or Trial gear is listed, because the crafted options are just superior, excluding the stuff listed in the situational list. Now let me show you a bunch of examples of final setups you could end up with. This is the crafted gear setup, which can be a good starter. Use training traits if you're still leveling. If you're already max level and have enough champion points, you can instead use Divines. The weight distribution of the setup from the table is 1 heavy, 1 medium, 5 light, so that you can start leveling up all your armor skill lines. Once you transition to regular setup, you'll be using 1 medium, 6 light most of the time, switching to 1 heavy, 1 medium, 5 light only against more difficult fights. The setup in the table uses only crafted gear, but if you already own some parts of the regular setup, like Ring of the Pale Order, you can start using them immediately. Next, this is a setup you should use if you have no access to any trial gear. Ansul's Torment gets replaced by Tideborn Wildstalker. This is the ideal setup for trash packs. Ansul's Torment gets replaced by Sul'Zan's Torment. And this is the ideal setup for extremely difficult fights, where you need lots of damage mitigation and sustain. Beacon of Oblivion is now frontbarred, instead of being fully on body. Ansul's Torment and Crushing Wall get replaced by backbarred Vestments of Olorim. This creates space for adding a monster set, Roxa the Warped, and 1 piece of Armor of the Trainee set on your chest slot, with heavy armor weight and reinforced trait. You can change some or all of the Magicka enchants to health ones for extremely hard-hitting bosses. Moving on to champion points. In the blue tree, you'll want to use Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, Fighting Finesse, and Wrathful Strikes. When soloing extremely difficult dungeons, you should replace Wrathful Strikes and Fighting Finesse with 2 of the 4 mitigation slotables that match the fight's damage type, so Ironclad, Duelist Rebuff, Unassailable, and Enduring Resolve. Huge majority of the times is going to be Ironclad and Duelist's Rebuff. Riving Blows is another decent blue CP for when you need more HPS. In the red tree, you'll want to use Bundles of Vitality, Siphoning Spells, Rejuvenation, and Fortified. Make sure to use Bracing Anchor in fights where you have to block a lot of attacks, and where you don't have to move that much. And remember to use Celerity in fights where you have to move a lot. Moving on to race. When it comes to solo PvE, you need both damage and survivability, so pretty much all races have useful ratios. The best race for dealing damage is Khajiit. While the critical damage from Feline Ambush can sometimes be wasted due to critical damage being capped at 125%, it will never happen in solo content, because there will be no tanks or healers, providing you with the major force buff. The best race for survivability, and what I am using, is Nord. The Ragged Racial will provide around 6% damage mitigation. Now Mundus. When subclassing into Assassination, you should use the Shadow Mundus, which increases your critical damage. When not utilizing subclassing, you should use the Thief Mundus, which increases critical chance. For extremely difficult dungeons, you should consider switching to the Lady Mundus, which increases your armor. For most content, you should put all 64 points into Magicka. For difficult content, you should devote as many attribute points as necessary to health. For some content, you'll be able to get away with 32 health, 32 Magicka. For the extremely difficult stuff, you'll need 64 health. Moving on to food. Your sustain can vary greatly because it's impacted by your armor weight composition, your race, and how much blocking or dodge rolling you're required to do in a certain fight. Choose the food with more recoveries, if you can sustain. So first we have Artyom Pickled Fishbowl, which provides max health and max Magicka, and it's the default option. Solitude Salmon Millet Soup is a cheaper alternative. Next we have Orzorga's Red Frofgar, which provides max health and Magicka recovery. Use it when you need more Magicka recovery. And then we have Orzorga's Smoked Bear Haunch, which provides maximum health, stamina recovery, and Magicka recovery. Use it when you can't sustain your Magicka skills, and also need more stamina recovery, for blocking or dodge rolling. Jewels of Mithril is a cheaper alternative. Moving on to potions. Most of the time you should use Tri-Stat potions. They will greatly improve your sustain. You can craft them by combining Columbine, Bugloss, and Mountain Slaver. There are better potions, but they're extremely expensive. Heroism potions can provide 100% uptime on minor heroism buff, which generates ultimate. But they're extremely expensive because they're crafted by combining Dragon Rheum, Dragon's Blood, and Columbine. Moving on to Parse. The regular setup, Parse has 66,761 on the 6 min and buff dummy. If we use only crafted gear, the DPS goes down to 56,904. You can find a recording of the Parse done with the regular gear in the description. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.